So I will, the ticker keeps going, so we're going to welcome folks as they do come in, but I think we've hit the 5 after 7 mark, so I do want to go ahead and begin with tonight's event. So first, just welcome to everybody who's joining us tonight. We're really glad that you can join us for this parent town hall. I wanted just to acknowledge, we did recently announce our initial plans for the fall, which does include a change to the academic calendar and an earlier return for Tuesday, August 18th. So we really want this opportunity to walk you through some of those plans and hopefully then address a lot of your questions. So first, I want to acknowledge I'm Hannah Maher. I'm the Vice President for Development and College Relations, and really tonight I'm just moderating the event, helping to field your questions, and I'm joined by a great panel of folks here with me. Tonight we have our President of the college, Dr. Clarence Wyatt. We also have our Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean, of the faculty, Mark Boulard. We have our Vice President for Enrollment Management, Kristen English, and then we have our Associate Vice President of Student Life and Co-Dean of Students, Karen Orgazalik. So thank you to the panelists for being here. It's a great group who will be able to really answer a lot of your questions tonight. So first, what we're going to do, a couple housekeeping things. If you're not that familiar with the system, there are a few ways that you can submit questions to us as we get going. There is a question and answer feature as well as a chat feature, and I'm going to be monitoring both of those. There's a panel kind of to the right side that you can use, and if you don't see that, there may also be little bubbles as you move your cursor, and right in the center there is a chat feature that allows you to access those. So we will do our best to, again, monitor those questions. I'll reframe them so the group can have the benefit of knowing the question as we answer them as well. We do have about a 10-minute presentation with slides to really help walk you through some of the information that may uncover some questions you have. And then we're really going to open up much of tonight's time to your questions and see what you have. But as we get going then, I want to just again acknowledge that this event is being recorded. I've already hit the record button, so you can hopefully watch this back if you're unable to see it all, or maybe those folks that aren't able to join us tonight are going to have the benefit of some of this information. So with all that, President Wyatt, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you just for your opening remarks as we get started here.
Well, I'll be very brief when we get on to the presentation and let you address questions to the folks who really know all the answers. I just want to welcome everyone tonight. As Hannah has indicated, we have a great turnout tonight. And to thank all of you, both the families of our incoming students and the families of our current students, returning students, for sticking with us through all of this. This has been a chaotic time, and we are very encouraged and even more grateful by the number of new families that are going to be joining us in the fall, and the number of our current members of the Monmouth College family who are going to be back with us this fall as well. We know that it's been a challenging time for everybody. It just is. I saw a story the other day in the newspaper where some folks are starting to refer to the prior to late February, early March as the before time. I think it was drawn from an episode of Star Trek, as a matter of fact, but it certainly feels that way. And we just so much appreciate the fact that you have chosen to become and chosen to remain a part of the Monmouth College family. And we are beyond excited about the prospect of welcoming either people back to the campus as new students, welcoming you for the first time as students, or welcoming you back to campus in the fall. You've seen some of the information, and certainly we're going to walk through some of that and have the opportunity to ask and answer questions about some things. But we have had a great group of people working very hard for the last, but really we began thinking about a return to campus even while we were figuring out how to move everybody away from campus in the middle of March. And that work really began in earnest in early April. We've had a fall 2020 planning group drawn from all across campus, thinking about all of the aspects of what it would take to return to campus in residence and do so safely. Because as we said from the beginning of all of this, our twin priorities are the health and safety of our students, faculty, staff, and as well the wider Monmouth city of Monmouth community, but also the quality and integrity of the educational experience. And we feel like we've got a great plan in place to be able to serve both of those priorities. Always the caveat, of course, that it's an evolving situation, and ultimately the virus is in charge, and in the state of Illinois, along with the virus, the governor. So that it's important to remember that. But we feel confident about our plans. We feel confident about the status of the virus in Illinois at this moment, and so we're so much looking forward to having everybody back. It'll make things feel something approaching normal again. To see young people on the campus is just way too quiet. So I will stop there, and we'll move on to the rest of the evening.
Thank you, President Wyatt. I just want to acknowledge a couple little questions that came in as they more to summer and spring. One, just as a note, have you decided how the spring 2021 will look like already? I think it's fair to say we're really trying to tackle fall 2020 first, and that's what this focus will look like. And as we know more of some of how that moves forward, we'll be able to better answer the questions on 2021. But I know there was another comment here, or a question I should say, about just the early return and maybe why it wasn't announced a bit sooner. I know that as people have summer plans, that is certainly a consideration. And I will just know as soon as those decisions were made, we tried to pass them along, but I will also pass it if anyone wants to address that before we go into our slide presentation.
Well, I asked Dean Wilhart particularly to follow this up, but as Hannah said, we wanted, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of moving parts to all of this. And we ran through a variety of scenarios. And again, in some ways, it's like a Rubik's Cube. You turn part of it and the rest of it starts to change, and you have to adjust to that as well. So we had run through any number of scenarios, finally landed on this one. And as soon as we had sort of run all the traps on it, got the word out. So that's we put the word out as soon as we felt comfortable in doing so, after having gone through a very thorough planning process.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for helping us kick off with some of the Q&A. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Vice President for Enrollment Management, Kristen English, as she can share her screen. And we're really going to help show you some of the work we've been doing, and again, hopefully address some of the questions on the front end here, and then really move into a more robust Q&A session following this. So, Kristen, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Hannah. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be with you tonight. As Hannah indicated, we mostly want to spend time this evening fielding new questions that we know you have in response to what's already been published, but we did want to take just a few minutes at the top to summarize the return to campus plan highlights for everyone. We know some of you may not have had a lot of opportunity to review closely all of the details that we've posted on the website, and we've been fielding quite a few questions since the initial publication of the plan. So we want to try to hit the highlights in the beginning, and then we'll save most of our time for incoming questions that you have. If anything that I bring up as we review these slides reminds you of a question, please feel free to go ahead and chat it in. Hannah is monitoring the Q&A and the chat, and we'll get to those as soon as we wrap the slides. So first, I just wanted to make everyone aware, we did email out this announcement to students and parents to the extent we had current email addresses for parents, with a link to the Return to Campus plan, but it's also linked on the homepage of the Monmouth College website. So if you haven't seen a copy, or if you'd like to refer to a copy during this presentation or later on this evening, if you go to monmouthcollege.edu and scroll down, when you see these 4 bars, you can link directly to the full text of the Return to Campus plan. There are also links there to the detailed academic calendars for both fall 2020 and spring 2021, which, as Hannah indicated, is the tentative plan for spring 2021. This group is going to continue to meet throughout the summer and into the fall. And if we have adjustments for spring 2021, we'll certainly communicate those as soon as we have the opportunity. So as Hannah mentioned, we are going to start the fall a little bit earlier, with classes beginning on Tuesday, August 18th. No fall break. and the last day of on-campus classes on Tuesday, November 24th, which is the week of Thanksgiving. Students will move out and go home on Thanksgiving break, and all finals will be remote November 30th through December 4th. So there will be an extended winter break for most students. And then as of this moment, our hope is to begin the spring 2021 academic semester on time with classes beginning Thursday, January 14th. Again, we'll assess that as we see how the summer and fall goes. And if we have to make any adjustments, we'll certainly be in touch with you and your students about that as soon as we are able to. So most students who are new incoming first year or transfer students will move in on Saturday, August 15th, a few days before the start of classes. Most returning students will move in on Sunday, August 16th or Monday, August 17th. We do have a few populations of students who typically move in early, and we expect that will be the case again this year, most significantly football players and other fall sport athletes. We're still in the process of finalizing exact move-in dates for each of those groups, so we will follow up with you and your students if your student is scheduled to move in early as soon as we can confirm exact dates and times. But we anticipate that most early move-in will happen between August 12th and August 14th. So because we're starting a little early, for those of you who do have summer travel commitments, or if your students are working or camp counseling or all of the other many things that students do, we don't anticipate anyone will move in any sooner than August 12th. We are planning to schedule arrival times or arrival windows for students who are moving in on a given day in an effort to limit the number of people who are coming in and out of the residence halls at one time during move-in, which is typically an event that involves a lot of people in one space at one time, which obviously we're trying to avoid to comply with social distancing as much as possible. So in addition to the specific date that your students will move in, we'll be in contact with you with a time or a time frame. We will be asking you to consider limiting the number of family members and others that you bring with as a part of the move-in process. We're in the process of working on a very specific detailed plan related only to move-in that we will also put out on the Return to Campus planning site a little bit later this summer. And there will be communication about that sent out with housing assignments for both new and returning students. New and returning students were given the opportunity a few weeks ago to fill out a form requesting a private room if they were uncomfortable about the idea of living with a roommate due to coronavirus related reasons. We are reviewing all of those requests now, but as of this moment, based on the number we got, we are anticipating that we will be able to accommodate most, if not all, of those private room requests. So if you have a student who submitted one, we have not followed up directly with students on that yet, but please know that at this time, we are anticipating that we'll be able to accommodate that for most students at no additional charge for a private room. When we think about residence life, one of the other significant factors is dining services. Meal schedules are going to be adjusted to in an effort to reduce the number of students served at one time. So there will be additional flexible options in the dining hall, and we'll be trying to encourage students and scheduling students to move in and out at more varied times versus the traditional 12 o'clock dining hall lunch rush that we're used to in a normal academic year. And we're also going to be increasing to-go and pre-packaged options for students. So we're going to try to make it as easy as possible for students to pop in and get a meal that they can take back with them if they're more comfortable eating outside or in their own residence hall room. So the Return to Campus plan that we've published online also goes into great detail regarding face coverings and social distancing. We are recommending that face masks, face coverings are worn by all community members at all times. And in many cases, they will be required, including anytime you're inside a building, including during class, with the exception of when students are in their own room. So if they're in their own room in their residence hall, obviously they won't be required to wear a mask, but for the most part, they will be most of the rest of the time that they're on campus. With respect to athletics, we're sorting out exactly how that's going to work for each sport individually, but we do want to make everyone aware of that. We're going to do quite a few other things in an effort to facilitate and support social distancing. So tables and furniture will be removed from dining facilities and other common areas just to limit the likelihood of larger gatherings. We're moving classes to larger classrooms as much as possible. We are in the process now of marking up campus with lots of signage and tape. So stairwells and hallways, and in many cases, entrances and exits to heavily trafficked buildings will be one way as much as possible. You've probably seen something like this in the grocery store or other places you may be out in public. It makes it really easy, and we think that students will get used to the traffic flow. We're also ordering plexiglass shields for some of the common areas where you would be standing at a desk interacting with someone in some of our dining facilities, for example, or office areas where there are front desk folks. And then the cleaning of high-touch areas campus-wide, so classrooms, residence halls, dining facilities, anywhere and everywhere will be dramatically increased. So we're really thinking hard about this, and there are additional details in the plan online, but we've been working closely with our facilities staff already all summer. We did welcome campus visitors back to campus this week under some of these same guidelines and restrictions. And so many of these cleaning regimens have already been implemented. So one of the big questions we know many of you will have is, what about my student who is a student athlete? And there is, to be honest with you, quite a lot that we are still sorting out with individual sports and the Midwest Conference regarding athletics and exactly what competition for each fall sport is going to look like this fall, in addition likely to some of the winter sports as well. But all of our teams are closely referring to and implementing procedures based on the action plan considerations released by the NCAA's chief medical officer. So health and safety is, our number one priority and concern. We are working on a phased approach to re-socializing college athletics, thinking about sanitation of equipment, symptom checkers, how do we deal with practice times, how many students can practice together at one time, water bottles, surfaces, all kinds of things like that. We anticipate, similar to the move-in and fall orientation plan, sharing some additional information in much greater detail a little bit later this summer. As President Wyatt indicated earlier, we want to make sure that we share information with you as soon as we possibly can, but we also want to make sure that we've had the opportunity to really vet it and that it's not going to change by the time we distribute it, because this is a little bit of a volatile situation and things are in flux and changing all the time. So we know athletics is a big open question for many of you, and we'd be happy to field questions to the extent you have them tonight. But please know that more information is coming. What's published on the website now is not the end of what we intend to communicate between now and fall move-in in August.
Kristen, if I could add something about athletics, the Midwest Conference athletic directors have been meeting regularly all through the summer. And in fact, Karen Dino Grzalik oversees athletics for us, along with AD Roger Haynes. The Midwest Conference presidents are meeting tomorrow morning via Zoom, and it's our hope that we are going to finalize plans for fall sports. And so we'll have that information out to you again, as Kristen indicated, as soon as we can. I think it's safe to say that what you're going to see is a reduced number of competitions, that we're going to minimize travel. Every one of us is committed to no overnight stays, et cetera. But again, we'll have the safety of our student athletes has been the primary focus of the conversation, obviously. But we also desire for those students to have that full experience as well. So anyway, we'll have, as I say, our hope is to have some more resolution about this tomorrow. We'll get that information out to you as fast as we have it.
I think I'm going to kick it back to you, Hannah, so that we can start working through some of the questions that I know we've had rolling in as I went through the slide deck.
Yes, we do have some questions. I think luckily probably a few were addressed, but I've also watched that our participant numbers have kind of fluxed a little bit. So there's maybe a few folks who maybe have also jumped in late. So I do want to be mindful that we're able to answer these all. So one of the first ones that I saw come in acknowledged that or questioned, they would like to know if a mask will be provided to each student, and then will Monmouth provide cleaning spray for the restrooms?
Karen, you want to?
Sure. So there will be masks provided. We're looking into the varieties that we have available. But we do encourage our students to bring a couple masks with them. It never hurts to have a few extra on hand. But we will have a couple provided for each. And the question about the restrooms, I think it will be, as Kristen had mentioned, heightened cleanliness in there, and the staff will be going in there more frequently. There is discussion about having some available in between those times, and so again, our health and safety of our students is a priority, and we want to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the cleanliness of things in their residence halls and bathrooms in academic buildings as well.
Thanks, Karen. We've got another one here as it relates to, I think, just some of the if someone gets sick, right? So the school does not have an infirmary on campus. How will the school address any students which might get sick? Also, if someone does test positive, where will the students be housed as they cannot go back to their dorms? And what happens if there is a roommate? So multiple pieces in that question, but I will kick it to y'all to take that one.
Karen, you should go ahead.
Yep. So we are working on ways in which we're going to be looking at students and helping monitoring them, doing some self-monitoring, and then notification if someone becomes ill. We do have an agreement and lots of communication with our local health facilities and our health department and the hospitals in the area. Should a student become ill, there are a couple different options. If it's a isolation where they need to, maybe they're at the beginning stages of illness and they're not sure that they have contracted anything yet, they will be isolated in their room with some guidelines on restrictions of interaction. And if they do test positive and they do need to be quarantined, we have identified a building on campus that the students will be housed in that no other students are living in at the time. And so they will live in that particular area. And we are still working out the arrangements for meal delivery, but they will get their meals, and proper cleaning will be done. And so they'll be, and all their academic materials and such will be moved to that facility.
And that is a residence hall. The building's a residence hall. It's not. It's a we're not stashing them in the gym. Yes.
A residence hall that is not being used by anyone else at the moment.
There you go.
Good clarification, and important clarification too. So we have this question come in a couple different forms. So I think we did kind of address it in the presentation. I do just want to acknowledge, in case there wasn't a clear understanding. It says, how will winter sports be affected by the fall semester ending at Thanksgiving, as practices would normally continue through mid-December?
Mm-hmm. And that is a plan, a contingency plan that we are considering at the moment. We are aware that those sports will begin practicing, and the competitions will also begin for them. Again, the meeting tomorrow will clarify a little bit more about what the competition schedule will look like, but as indicated, it will be probably reduced, and they may not be going home, but we will certainly monitor their well-being and make sure that they are taken care of while they're on campus.
We also had a question as it relates to move-in times, and just a note, could we request a Sunday move-in? Looks like someone who has just a conflict for employment to be able to come back and take their daughter to campus.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Returning students, we have exceptions to those move-in times all the time. I would encourage you to contact the Residence Life Office and make the arrangements, and we will certainly accommodate those.
We also have a question as it relates to the Sophia program and if this program will happen this August.
So Sophia has been canceled this year. The nature of those experiences as ones where the students are working very, very closely together, often in the same building with the other Sophia projects and their professor. We just decided that rather than try to get that experience virtually through remote learning, we would put the program on hiatus this year. I noticed that question also came in at one point with a question about marching band, and there are several other questions about marching band. So let me address that one while we're at it. The plan right now is to have marching band occur, but I think the difficulty there is that we're getting some conflicting national information about spread through instrument playing. That is to say, the proximity and how close people should be together when they're playing. So we're still working on ensembles. We're still working on chorale. Again, if those don't occur in the traditional form, they will. The music department is working very, very hard on finding ways to give those students an experience that is still meaningful and will help continue their music careers.
I just want to add one thing quickly about Sophia, Mark. It is our plan to give the incoming students who are planning to participate in Sophia this year the opportunity to do so at some point in the future. We know so many of those students were so disappointed. Sophia is such a wonderful opportunity. So we're not quite sure exactly what that looks like yet. It may be that the summer 2021 Sophia cohort includes both new incoming first-year students as well as some of the returning second-year students who weren't able to have that opportunity in this summer. But we are committed to recreating some version of that for this group at some point. We've also added a series of virtual mini classes hosted by Monmouth College faculty that are wonderful for Sophia-esque students. They're primarily targeted at high school students, rising high school juniors and seniors, but we have welcomed our incoming Monmouth College freshmen to participate as well. So if you have a high interest Sophia student who's a new incoming first year or transfer student this year, we'd love to have you check those out on our visit website under the admission page on the web.
I wanted to follow up to something, Mark, you went ahead and started to answer another question as related to marching band and some of our music and choral groups. Additional questions were obviously about marching band, but then will students be required, to wear masks for the choral groups? And as questions come in, I lost my one here. For those rehearsals, it might be kind of impossible for wind players, instrument players, as you can imagine, but just a little bit more detail, I think, on some of the band and choral groups. Sure. If you could. Interestingly, there are schools right now who are experimenting with having masks with slits in for wind players. We're not sure that we want to go that direction, but it's something that's happening in the higher ed world right now. One of the things that Tim Pale has talked about with chorale in particular and with the choral groups is adequate spacing. We're also, so the first line of defense in this is singing with masks on becomes very, very difficult, but adequate spacing of 10 to 15 feet apart in the DAL is still a possibility, and we're exploring how that might work. The other thing that we're experimenting with right now is plastic face shields. Tim has got some prototypes that he's looking at to see if maybe rather than wearing face masks, the chorale could perform by wearing shields. And that might get rid of some of the particulate that, or protects from some of the particulate that would be otherwise released during singing. So we're exploring a number of things in order to try to make those events continue to happen. Again, they are going to change. They're necessarily going to change. But we think that the experience is so valuable for our students, and we're so committed to trying to get that in whatever form we can, that we're working with the solutions that are presenting themselves. Thank you, Mark. I see a couple other questions here as it relates more to students who maybe feel ill or access to COVID testing and where that might be. So I thought we'll go ahead and maybe bundle some of those questions if you wouldn't mind. So what is the plan if students say they feel ill, and will there be COVID testing on site?
So again, if a student feels ill, we will have connections with our local healthcare facilities, and we can make sure that they get connected there. Teledoc options are also possibilities. As you are probably aware in your own community with your health facilities, there are lots of phone call screenings. When you make your phone call to make an appointment, they'll screen you with a couple questions, and then also make connections with our health department if necessary. We are looking at testing options right now. The state of Illinois does have a number of testing sites. The closest one, we have a number of them that are somewhat close to us, one being in Peoria. We can also do help transport if necessary to get them to those locations, because obviously not everyone is going to have a vehicle.
And I did see a question, someone asked about having a nurse, employing a nurse to for access. As Karen mentioned, the Order of St. Francis is the large hospital. Many of you all know the large hospital chain in Illinois, and we have two local facilities, one right in Monmouth. And OSF has done a and I can't remember the name that they've given to it, but they have a very good live conversation, live chat access for access to a nurse that would do the same things that a nurse would do in terms of, as Karen mentioned, in terms of screening, and then directing on to the next steps, next stages of care as necessary.
Some additional follow-up questions, and I'll kind of bundle these together as well for our out-of-state students. For out-of-state students, what's the plan for medical services if needed? Also, some states have implemented quarantines. If Illinois does this, how will this affect out-of-state students?
I think the quarantine question, when New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut going today for the quarantine, it's something that the fall planning group has not discussed directly because it hadn't been on Illinois' radar. Maybe given the prevalence of things, it ought to be on our radar again, because this is now the second round of suggested quarantines coming out of the Northeast. I suspect, speaking out of turn, that if the state of Illinois says that we have to quarantine people, we will ask them to quarantine. In the same way that we have done self-quarantines before, and we will ask students who are symptomatic to continue to monitor their symptoms and to isolate at the beginning stages and to quarantine if necessary. The other part of the question?
I think it was just access to some of the services in general for those out-of-state students. And I think, Karen, you kind of answered some of that as well, right, as far as our ability to have resources and be of assistance with those students, additionally those teledoc opportunities. But I'll certainly let you guys, if there's anything else you'd all like to add to that.
I do believe in our document online, there is a link to OSF in our plan that you could click on and explore what those options are, so that if you're out of state, you want to check your medical insurance coverage or what's connected or such. And actually, I was looking at it earlier today, and it's quite extensive. They have screeners on right there as well, so it's a great resource to be familiar with.
We also have a question here for more the residents' life again. So is the college working with the Greek life houses to ensure proper safety measures are in place?
Yes. So everything that is happening in our residence halls is also happening within our Greek housing operations. And every Greek house has a house manager who is trained alongside the residence life staff members for the residence halls, and they will receive all the same information and be connected with all the same people should necessary cleaning, additional cleaning, or if someone is ill, and just monitoring what is going on in the residence hall, Greek house.
A similar residence life question: can students with underlying health conditions have a private restroom, and how soon will incoming freshmen know their living arrangements?
I'll answer the second one first. So the plan is to send all of the information out by mid-July. Earlier is the plan, but obviously there are a couple other considerations that are in play right now. So they've started working on that, and as soon as it is all complete, that will be sent out, as Kristen indicated earlier. The first part, there are some residence halls that do have private restrooms. And if there is a specific underlying condition where they do need to have that, then that is something that they certainly should call the residence life office and explore what options are available. Not every single residence hall is completely full at capacity, because we thought that there would be things that would come up that we might need to make rearrangements or rearrange housing or accommodate students with such needs. So again, contact the residence life office as soon as possible to explore what options are available for that.
We had another one here, it looks like, as it relates back again to Greek life, but more so in recruitment. How will Greek life recruitment work?
Mm-hmm. That has been a question since March, and both the Interfraternity Council for the men and the Panhellenic Council for the women have been working with their respective national organizations. NPC has outlined some very specific ways in which you can have hybrid models of recruitment. Obviously, for those who are familiar with sorority recruitment, it's pretty intense and in large groups. And Panhellenic Council has already started meeting and exploring the different options that they can recruit in a similar but safe manner. So it will be a hybrid. Each of the national organizations are also working with our chapters and their shared people, so that their leadership team, so that it is, they have a lot of resources to help. The same is true for the men. Their recruitment is a little less structured than the women, and so it's a little easier to accommodate some of the social distancing and ability to still go through the recruitment process. However, in both cases, if the prospective members are not comfortable going into a room with 10 or less, there's a hybrid way for them to also go through the recruitment process. It's just not in person. It might be in a Zoom meeting or a Google Hangouts, whatever that chapter might end up doing. But so they can participate in person, smaller hybrid function, or they can participate in a non-in-person structured way.
Thank you, Karen. I have a couple other questions that have come in. I'll keep you in the hot seat here for a moment. As it relates to just those access to kitchens or ability for students to cook his or her own meals.
Mm-hmm. It does depend on which facility the student lives in. We have talked in great detail about the use of kitchens and facilities, as we do know that there are some students who are not on the meal plan and don't have the option to go into the cafeteria. Some of the kitchens will be open. Obviously, we're restricting some of the use that we're doing. Some of our common area high touch points, such as microwaves and refrigerators, are very restricted. If it is possible to have your own refrigerator, obviously we would encourage that to bring into your residence hall to have your own food. There are like in our Founders Village, which is mostly where the fraternity men will be living, and they do have their own kitchens in there. And so obviously those are private kitchens, which are restricted to just the few people who are living in that facility, and their kitchens will be free to cook in. Again, it's the safety and the high touch points, so the cleanliness is important, but we know that some of these restrictions are going to be an inconvenience for a time, but again, it's the importance of the health and safety of our students. And if there are specific issues that people need to address in the halls, then it's encouraged that we work through the residence hall staff and the residence life office to make sure that you can eat, because that is important as well, and you're able to provide the food that you need to be healthy.
Karen, the same for microwaves, correct? As for refrigerators.
Right, microwaves and refrigerators, yep. And yes, students can have microwaves in their rooms, which just follow the guidelines for, as well as with the refrigerators, there's a certain size for both. And so as long as it complies with those, that's a possibility, that's encouraged.
I'm going to give you a break, Karen, out of the hot seat, and I'm going to turn it to Mark here for just a moment. We have a couple questions. I'll bundle them together as it relates to just in-classroom instruction, as well as do professors have the choice to only have online classes during the fall? And then kind of another third part, will all classrooms be air conditioned if masks are required during the warmer months?
The vast majority of classrooms now are air conditioned. Maybe they got room air conditioning or they've got central. So I think there are still a few that are not air conditioned, but they are literally a handful, counted on one hand. In terms of pulling together the classroom experience, I think what we can see from what we can expect is that students will be wearing masks all the time, that the professors will be in masks as well. We are working on making sure that we've got adequate social distancing space within the classrooms. And that may mean doing some rearranging from where classes have been traditionally held so that we can get them into rooms where they otherwise would fit. And I've lost the first part of the question because I was thinking about the last part of the question.
More so just, are there opportunities for the faculty to provide only online learning in this kind of fall plan?
So by necessity, because we have faculty members as well as students who have underlying conditions, which we need to accommodate in a time like this, there will be a number of faculty who will be providing remote learning continually for their students because of their conditions, they cannot come back to campus. The ability for all faculty to do that, though, the expectation is going to be that they will be in the classroom. Just as the students are returning, the faculty will return as well, because part of what we value here is we value the experience together, even if it's a changed experience, even if it is a socially distanced experience, even if it is mediated by masks. The idea is that our best instruction still, we believe, happens together. So there are some possibilities for remote learning, but it's not going to be as widespread, certainly, as it was in the spring, and it will be by faculty who have got some underlying concern.
So we've got a couple questions. Again, I'll kind of bundle them so they can all be addressed in line as it relates more to just those typical back to school things, such as will the new student walkout in the community take place? And then I'm going to bundle that also just with our parents and families expected to help our students move in and then leave as quickly as possible to limit our time on campus. If we have a new student, will we say our goodbyes Saturday and then not see them again, or possibly maybe see them on Sunday? And then again, another kind of piece I want to throw in there because they're all very related is are students encouraged to not leave campus, or can they leave for the weekends? Can family members visit them as well?
Okay, so I'm going to try to hit all those questions, Hannah, so keep me on task. The walkout for the community is not going to happen in the fashion that it normally does. We are working on ways in which that we can still expose our students to the community, and which they will be in for the next 4 years, and but those details are being worked out. So initially, no, that is not happening as it has. Students, as Kristen said, as far as the move-in plan goes, we're still working out the fine details of that. Yes, at least a parent can help move into the building. We're exploring options of how that might happen. Again, we're trying to limit the number of people that are in a residence hall, the one-way entrances, and obviously we're trying to work through all of that. Obviously mom and dad can come, multiple family members can come, but we would like you to limit that as much as possible. But those details will be part of the move-in plan when you get your housing assignments and when your move-in time is. So again, we are trying to limit the number of people that are on campus on that day, just for safety and social distancing. The next question, do you have to leave right away? Well, we normally say it's time to say goodbye to your student on Saturday. You know, say your goodbyes, and you will see them again. We know that there are a number of things that are happening in students' lives academically where they have to depart campus. And so obviously we cannot stop them from doing that because it's part of their experience here. And again, we know that there are things that students have to go home for. And while we would encourage them to stay, we're not putting up an electric fence or anything and keeping them here. But those are things that they need to think about seriously, whether or not going home and coming back and the exposure to our family and to your family as well. So the least number of times that they leave campus and go home is preferred. But we know that everyone has a different situation, and we have to accept that and appreciate that.
I would just add to that, Karen, that's exactly right, that we're really applying the same principle. We would ask our students and ask you all to apply the same principle that we're applying to college travel in terms of for college related business. Is travel necessary, or can it be achieved by means such as this? And so that's would answer to stop thinking, do I really need to go home, or can I do my own laundry?
And you may appreciate them doing their own laundry. Another good question, Mark, I'll pose this one to you. How will the science and lab classes and those things be handled?
Part of the lab capacity over the past few years, we've been trying to work with smaller lab sciences across the board, simply because it makes for better pedagogy. You can teach better if you have more sections and fewer students in them. And so we've been moving towards that anyway. Several of the sections in the recent past, and in fact, I was just talking to a chemistry professor yesterday about labs in the first Chem 140 class, they're creeping up. And so part of what we're going to have to do there is to find ways to either stagger the labs so that the students are attending on slightly different time schedules than they would have done, or begin to expand the labs into what traditionally has been held in one lab always. We can move into another lab so that we've got extra lab space. And so the professor is working in 2 lab spaces. This is some of the stuff that we're working out right now with the registrar's office, who does the room scheduling. And as part of what we're doing is the overall classroom management for fall 2020.
Great, thank you, Mark. I will note that I've had a number of questions as kind of follow-up to symptom tracking and checking, as well as managing any students that do get moved into the quarantine residence hall. So I want to acknowledge that. So as far as symptom tracking, are we going to be taking temperatures? What will we do if somebody who has experienced symptoms or has tested positive, who has a roommate? What do we do in that situation? And then the third one is just, is there a medical professional on staff monitoring those students who might go into the other residence hall, or how are they being monitored as their symptoms progress?
Mm-hmm. We are working on a number of those plans. The details are sketched out right now. We just need to flesh them out a little bit more for how they will be addressed if they get moved into the quarantine residence hall. As far as temperature taking, that is also something that is being explored for the residence halls. The athletes will have their temperature taken before before practices on a daily basis. It's always a good suggestion to send your son or daughter to school with their own temperature or their own thermometer, so that they can be self-checking. If there is a temperature or any of the other symptoms, certainly that's an immediate contact with our local provider and make sure that things get taken care of. As far as contact tracing and roommates, certainly they will. The next question is, who have you been in contact with, and how do we appropriately have to address those students? So whether it's a quarantine or it's an isolation, certainly we would handle those as the situations arise and correctly. Did I hit them all?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I was trying to find my unmute button. I have a couple other questions as it relates to potentially if we find ourselves in a situation where the state goes back into a kind of a lockdown mode. What are some of the steps we plan to take for online learning, and how would that be different than the spring? And then also, if there are any faculty members who are determining that they're going to do some sort of online delivery of instruction, will the students know that before they come here in the fall?
Again, second first. Yes, I've asked anyone who's arranged for remote learning for their classrooms to contact their students as early as possible. In terms of what will be different than the spring, I think that there are a number of things. The first of which is that the Associated Colleges of the Midwest, which is the consortium to which Monmouth belongs, the academic consortium to which it belongs, has done a month's worth of twice a week training on remote learning. Liberal arts colleges have not traditionally used this as a fundamental part of their model, and so our professors have had to catch up. But the training that they've had has been excellent, and so that there are more fundamental things about their classes that they know now about remote learning, both from having done it in the spring, but also through the training. That training is going to be ongoing. The other thing that's different is that in the spring, because we had to move so fast to remote learning, we sort of said, go find your tools and get your students to move through. In hindsight, what we should have said was, here are your tools, get your students to use them. The learning management system that we have built into the college is something called Moodle. Google Classroom is something that almost every high school student, in fact, almost every public school student at any age level uses to a greater or lesser degree. And we've all become familiar with Zoom. And so what I've told the professors is that even if they're not working remotely, dedicated for all their classes dedicatedly in the fall, that they ought to put all of their classes on either Moodle or Google Classroom, and then to make use of Zoom for office hours or for other things so that they're working asynchronously as much as possible. What this allows us to do is it allows us to pivot much more smoothly and with better content already built for those students, because they're looking for assignments on those things. They're looking for the calendar. They're looking for all of that already for the course, even if they're meeting in person. That means that if we have to pivot to a remote learning situation, all of that they're already familiar with. The professors have already done all the work to get it set up there. So we're trying to ensure that that happens for this semester in particular, so that if the state puts us in lockdown again, or if there's other events, a breakout in Monmouth or on campus or in the area, then we can move remotely without too much of a hiccup.
Thank you, Mark. I do want to just acknowledge, folks, thank you for sticking with us. We've got a big group that has really maintained. We are nearing the 8 o'clock hour, but we're going to continue for just a little bit longer, another 10 or 15 minutes or so. But if it gets to a point when we do wrap up, we haven't yet addressed your question, we will be monitoring what is left in the queue here and try to address those as individually as we can. Additionally, we've been taking notes this whole time so that we can better update that fall 2020 plan that's on the website to reflect some of these questions, these great questions that you brought to our attention. So another way that we'll try to help make certain that information is shared. Another one I want to throw to the group as it relates to a few other of our programs. We've addressed things as it relates to choral groups and band. What about theater students? And then additionally, what about those education majors, and are they have the opportunity to go into the classroom in those local schools for teaching hours?
So theater right now is working on rearranging how they're doing their both their teaching, but also their fall schedule. The productions that had been scheduled for the Black Box Theater downtown are no longer going to be there. They will be in the Wells Theater, so that we've got more adequate spacing, both for the actors, but also for the audience. The teaching, which would again normally be done in classroom, is now going to be done at the Wells as well, so that students who are acting and will be acting with masks on, at least in the classroom, will have adequate spacing. As we're thinking about what was the second one again? I got lost in my theater answer. I love my answers so much that I get lost in my thought about what they are, and then I clearly
our student teachers, yeah.
as a professor, I can no longer juggle multiple things. The student teachers. Part of this depends entirely on the districts. Our plan is always to put our students and our student teachers in the classrooms, but if the local districts are not going to be meeting in person, if they're going to be working remotely as well, then we're going to have to work with their parameters. Right now, our educational studies department is making all the plans to place their student teachers as always, but with the understanding that we may have to shift that too, because their experience may be as remote teachers working under the tutelage of a master teacher in that way. So we will roll with what the districts are doing, even as we make our preparations.
We had one just inquiry as it relates to where do the cases stand for Warren County currently? I don't know that we gave that update in the very beginning, but I know we've got those numbers and can give that update.
As of today, we've had 132 total cases since the virus came to Warren County. For the last, couple of weeks at least, longer than that. Longer than that. We've had very few new cases. The curve is very flat in Warren County. Out of those 132 total cases, 103 individuals have had symptoms resolved. So we're all cheering for the day that the number of total cases matches, or the number of resolved cases matches the number of total cases. And a pretty robust testing protocol in Warren County, well over 800 negative tests against those 132 positive tests.
Thank you, President Wyatt.
This morning. That's as of this morning.
We also had a question just as it relates more to the end of the fall semester with that change. So do the students have to move out their belongings on November 24th, or will they be allowed to stay in their rooms?
They will be able to leave their items in their room. We would encourage them to take as many of the items that they will be needing for their finals and textbooks and all of that home with them. We would also, in the beginning, encourage them to leave some of their bigger furniture items at home, just so that they don't have to worry about taking those at any time. But yes, they can leave their belongings in their residence hall over the break, but definitely take everything that they're going to need with them moving forward.
We've had another question come through a couple times as well as it relates just to, are there any concerns or hurdles, I guess, for any of our international students?
Kristen, I'll let you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I couldn't tell if you were wondering thoughtfully or looking at someone else on the screen. That's the world we live in now. But yes, the short answer is we have a lot of questions and concerns, and there's quite a lot unknown regarding what exactly the academic year is going to look like for our new and returning international students. Many of those students are still in the States. Many of our international students stay in the States through the summer. Many of them went home and they are all over the world. And so I think in many cases, we're going to be working with those students, each and every one individually, in an effort to figure out when and how they may be able to get back to campus, and what we can do for them if they can't get back to campus. The advantage of a school like Monmouth is we don't have 30,000 students and 4,000 international students. We have a small population, which really gives us an opportunity in these kinds of situations to work with students and families one-on-one to map out the best possible opportunities for them given their unique circumstances.
We have had a couple questions also just as it relates to the session being recorded. So just another reminder, yep, the session is certainly recorded, and we'll be sharing that on our fall 2020 planning site following it later this week. And so please do feel free to look for that there if you've missed some of the things we've already covered. A couple additional follow-up questions have come in as well as it relates to students who maybe have or experiencing symptoms. Do they then self-isolate, and how do they access meals at that case? Additionally, for those students who maybe are sick and in the quarantine dorm, how do they access their classes or experience remote learning? And then I am going to tack on a third question that kind of came in. If somebody does go home because of sickness, do they then have access to remote learning to be able to finish out their semester?
I'll take the first question, and then I'm going to pass it over to you, Mark.
You bet.
The beauty of our campus is that we are full of kind, caring individuals. And so in the event that someone is ill, we'll be aware of it. Whether the student immediately tells someone that they're ill, or the RA staff is aware of someone being ill, we will find out about it. And again, we will make sure that they get their meals, and they are connected with the health facilities in town so that they can get what they need. So again, there is a difference between isolation and quarantine. So if they're beginning to feel ill, they may be isolated in their room. And then of course we would manage roommates or suite mates should they not be in their own personal room. So we will accommodate everyone in that case. Quarantined, if they are exhibiting those major symptoms and they do need to be quarantined, again, they would be provided with their meals and the accommodations that they need to heal themselves, get better. And then the classes I'll let Mark handle.
Yeah, and the classes, because the professors are going to have to be cognizant of having blended classes in any case, that they're going to have students who, for various reasons, may or may not be on campus. If we have a student that moves into quarantine on campus here, it will be like any of those other students. That they will take part in the classes, they will follow achieve the learning goals for each class, they will do the work, they will work through all the rest of it. And as happened in the spring, only I hope a great deal better, the professors will work with them individually on the projects. They will do the advising, they will do the Zoom meetings necessary, they will provide the content online that will allow the students to complete those classes and get as robust an experience as the students who are still sitting in the classroom will.
Great, thank you both. I have a couple more questions I'm going to try to pose to the group, and if we've not been able to get to your question, I'm going to stick around for a while and certainly try to answer just a few here, but we will then also capture any that I'm not able to get to and make certain we follow up in email format. So much of you had to put the email in when you signed on, so we're able to connect back with you. This is more to the in-classroom experience. So will some classes be held outside or virtually, and how are we addressing maybe social distancing in the classroom? Are we limiting class sizes, or what are we doing to address social distancing in the classrooms?
So part of the process for limiting social or dealing with social distancing in the classroom is simply measuring. We're pulling schematics for each of the rooms. We are figuring out the maximum class size for any class in that room. We're trying to match those things together. Again, part of the glory of being at a liberal arts college is that we're not facing what many state universities are facing, which is classes of 500, 600, 700. people. They have very, very large enrollments on many of their classes. Most of the rooms that we have can accommodate with adequate social distancing the courses that are going to be in them. We will have to rearrange some. We're not particularly limiting the size of courses because for most of our courses, that's really not an issue. And some of the ones that are larger, we're looking at venues that will allow us to space adequately. If that proves impossible, then what we'll do is we'll split sections and we'll do the things that other universities and colleges are doing across the nation, because it's the way to keep our students safe while still giving them the education that they need. In terms of outdoor classrooms, it's interesting. We have one outdoor classroom built in here. We have probably a second space that we could turn into one relatively quickly for a seminar. But I think one of the things that I've been reading up on in the past 48 hours, frankly, some of the opening guides. And one of the things that they're indicating is that it wouldn't be bad to improvise a couple of outdoor classrooms. And I think that might be something that we will look into, because I think that there are a number of courses that we could continue, our fall weather for a condensed semester probably would allow us to keep some of that going. So I think it's a likely possibility for us.
There's also another question as it relates to the date of new student orientation, and just those that maybe cannot attend events such as that. Will there be another opportunity to participate in new student orientation?
Specifically, the fall orientation is probably going to be a hybrid of in-person and online. So certainly all of that would be available in the fall. There's also an orientation on July 11th. Kristen, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I'm glad that question came up in case we have parents of new incoming students. So virtual orientation for new incoming students this year is taking place all virtually through the summer. As Karen indicated, the fall may look a little different, and is primarily happening in 3 parts. One-on-one advising appointments with a summer advisor where the new incoming students will make their fall freshman class schedule. And many of your students have already done that. We're still working through a few at this point. We are still putting students in orientation groups led by orientation leaders and mentors who are current Monmouth College upperclassmen. If we have parents of current students on the call, you may have a son or daughter who is helping some of the other parents' new incoming students acclimate to the college. Those groups are going to be meeting virtually 3 times throughout the summer. The first meetup already happened. The second one is on July 11th. That Saturday that Karen indicated is kind of our larger virtual summer orientation event. And then there will be a third student orientation group meetup in August, just so the new incoming students have the opportunity to really be in contact with current students as much as possible throughout the summer to get their questions answered, since we aren't able to do that big in-person event. And then on Saturday, July 11th, we will have a series of events that are set up very similar to this. There will be a big opening session for parents at noon. We're offering the same option in Spanish at 11 a.m. that morning. And then there will be a series of smaller breakout sessions throughout the afternoon. Just like with this session, we will be recording all of those, and we do plan to post the recordings in addition to the slide decks from each of those on the summer orientation or the orientation website on our webpage. So we're also considering offering synchronous versions of them again later in July or in early August if we find there's a lot of interest in that. But in any case, the recordings will be available. And if you or your students have any questions, the admission staff is also available. We're here full-time all summer to talk you through kind of anything and everything down to the how large can my mini fridge be type of questions. We're really happy to work with you.
All right, I'm going to pose one last question here for the group, but again, I will maintain on here to help answer just in chat features back to many folks some of your questions, and then if we can, we will try to gather what's still here or what maybe wasn't particularly answered and try to follow up with some email. Again, Kristen's team is more than happy to help field any other questions, things you might want to talk through with an admissions counselor or just another member of the staff. So the final question to the folks here is just as it relates to how are we opening up our Trotter Fitness Center? How will folks have access to it this fall? But then also a second question, again, I'm bundling it today. Will there be spectators allowed at the athletic events this fall?
Mhm. So that's a great question, because we were just talking about the Trotter Fitness Center. As you know, many athletes have to funnel through there and have their workout sessions, and we have to practice social distancing. And so the athletic director and the director of the Trotter Fitness Center and a couple other folks are getting together next week to kind of schedule out how people are going to be in there. Obviously, we have a lot of athletes that need to be in there, but we also want to be respectful of the non-athletes and our employees who want to use the facility as well. So, and making sure that we're keeping our numbers where they need to be and allowing ample time to do proper cleaning in between the uses. So that is being worked on right now. It will be opened up. It might be restricted, just as everything else is for the social distancing and the cleanliness stage, but it will be open. And I would encourage close attention to the hours that will be posted and the times in which you can go, for the times that you can go in to work out. The second question, I've lost it. I'm turning it to Mark.
Yeah, it's good. Will spectators be allowed at athletic events?
Oh, again, I think we do need to follow the guidelines that were given both for social distancing by the state and by our conference. We do not televise. Well, I guess through remote watching of events, that is also an option for you to participate, but there will be some indoor and outdoor event spectators available. Again, we're working out those details. We have to honor the social distancing. But we do know that it is important for family members and our students and our community to support our athletes. And so we are working the ways that we can do that in a safe and comfortable environment for everyone.
Well, thank you all to our Monmouth folks, our panelists here, for helping to answer a lot of these questions to the families of our students. You know, we are so looking forward to having your sons and daughters on campus, and really hope that tonight's event in Town Hall helped answer a lot of questions you had. I know there probably are still more, and they'll continue to roll in, and we are happy to try to do our best to continue to answer them. But please do continue to watch that Fall 2020 planning site on our webpage. We're going to update that again to reflect many of the things we discussed here tonight, and we'll continue to update that as more information is determined and comes our way as well. So we'll be sure to be sending emails your way this summer, and check again with your son and daughter too to see what they're getting from us. We just look so forward to having campus vibrant again this fall. We believe so wholeheartedly in the residential liberal arts experience that we want to have a very safe way to bring these students back. So we are very much committed to that. Thank you again for giving so much of your time tonight. I know we went a little past the 8 o'clock hour. So to that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and end our recording. So thank you to those, again, who were able to join us. Have a good night.